Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coach-your-PO. All lowercase, all one word, that's bit.ly/coach-your-PO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, welcome to our TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Catherine Kraus. Hey Catherine, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So Catherine, on Fridays we like to talk about, in a relaxed manner, about some bad examples, but also some great examples of what product owners look like. Of course we do that because as Scrum Masters, the product owner is one of those critical dynamic roles for us, right? If our dynamic with the product owner works well, then we're much more likely to help the team succeed than otherwise. So we need to understand the anti-patterns and, of course, great examples to look out for. So let's start with the anti-pattern, Catherine. Share with us what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
I had a product owner who was amazingly organized and really great with following up on topics. And this was his strength. However, when he overused this strength, it turned into micromanaging the team. And so he wanted to know where the team were at all times. So we'd have our Scrum ceremonies, the daily Scrum and the sprint reviews, but still this wasn't enough for the PO. And he wanted more information from the team on the status of their development. So he would often create these kind of impromptu meetings, pinging them, calling them with individual team members to just check up on the progress of things. And this was not helpful for either, it wasn't helpful for the team
so
or
it was
the
interrupting, right?
Yeah, it was interrupting the team's work. And so they weren't able to kind of stay focused for a long time on a specific task.
I can only imagine, having been a project manager like you were before, I know what that feels like because I've done it, right? Like first to put my hand up and apologize. I've been that person of like just wanting to follow up and always interrupting. Of course, at that time, we were all in the same office and I would meet people in the coffee room or just walking in the corridor, and the interruption is perhaps not so disruptive. I don't know if you mean that, but I can imagine that in these days of hybrid and remote work, these interruptions are highly disruptive because they interrupt the flow of the work and they need to be scheduled into the calendar so that you have, a link to click and join the call, right? Was this in a remote environment?
Yes, this was in a remote environment. And just in general with task interruption, studies have been shown on flow and basically, to get into the flow, it takes a while to get into the flow. But once you're broken out of the flow and you're kind of changing it, it takes another 20 minutes to get back into your flow. So it's a pretty high price for interrupting someone. So it's good to kind of think twice to not interrupt someone. But in this case, the PO was kind of setting up these impromptu meetings, and the developers were finding it really difficult to kind of fit everything into the day, and they were getting stressed out because of it.
And developers also have this. There's this article on the net. I'll put the link on the show notes. The difference between maker time and manager time, right? Like maker or programmer, creative person, they need more time uninterrupted, right? Like you need, as a developer, a friend of mine did this with their team where they set up non-interrupt hours. So there was like minimum of 4 hours of non-interrupted time plus a non-interrupt day, right? So that every day had a certain number of hours where they were not allowed to be interrupted. Plus on Friday, they had the whole day for free of meetings so that they couldn't be interrupted. How did you guys start talking to the PO and talking about the need for that maker time, right? The uninterrupted time?
Yeah, I love that idea of maker time. So luckily, a team member did come to me to tell me about the situation in confidence and asked me to talk to the PO about this. So as you can imagine, it was a little bit of a delicate situation. So I kind of debated how should I handle this, but in the end, I made this kind of one-on-one appointment with the PO, and I just set an intention ahead of time to have the goal, like, what do we need most for the team? Well, we need to create transparency for both the developers and the PO that they're comfortable with and shows our progress during the sprint. And so I set this intention of how can we get that transparency? And I talked about that topic with the PO in our one-on-one. And so basically, he actually was very open, and I was so grateful for that. He wanted to know what he could do better. And I was able to give him then some observations. And then we talked about using the Scrum events for their purpose, right? And giving the team more space, like you said, for this maker time, for their development time. And what really helped is we paid a lot more attention to the sprint goal as a way to kind of gauge where we are in the sprint. We paid more attention to the sprint goal as a way to gauge where we are.
So was that so that using the sprint goal, you talked about where you were in relation to the sprint goal and use that in the dailies? Is that what you mean?
That's right. Yeah. So that gave the PO, let's say, a little bit more insights into where we're going. And so that way he wasn't as concerned about the nitty-gritty details of, how we were progressing with the individual tasks. He was more concerned then of the sprint goal, and that really helped him. And it gave him actually more time to focus on connecting with, the business lines with customers. So that was really helpful as well for him because it freed up his time.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because at the end of the day, we want the team to get to a point where they are the ones worried about progress, right? It's not the PO. The PO just trusts the team to deliver, and the team worries about, if there's missing information or if they need help. We talk about those things more effectively and more often, perhaps even, have a Slack channel or whatever chat tool we use where we talk about, I need help with this, who can help me? Asynchronous communication is also not as disruptive as the setting up a meeting and so on and so forth. And you raised a very important point, which is that the PO stepping out of the day-to-day follow-up can then focus on other things that are higher value for the team, right? Managing stakeholder expectation, clarifying requirements, etc.
That's right. And that's exactly what happened. So in the end, that worked out very well, that the PO was then able to, focus more on the customer, focus more on the product. And that's actually, his role as a product owner. And so, the details were then more transferred to the development team. And then they had more autonomy and more control over the development and could then decide more on their own, the details of how that product, like kind of the how.
The how. Exactly.
Not the what. The what, the product owner, and then the how, the developers. So
absolutely. Of course, that was the anti-pattern, which you helped us also understand how to resolve. But we also want to hear the opposite, the mirror image of that. So, Catherine, describe for us, how did the best product owner you've ever worked with perform?
So I've been lucky so far in my Scrum Master career to work only with really good product owners, to be honest. From what I've observed, a good product owner is, knowledgeable about the product and customer needs and can communicate his or her vision and delegates topics to others. So this is what I've recognized as a good product owner. However, when I kind of reflect on what differentiates a good product owner from a great product owner, I have a certain product owner in mind. So this product owner, really put his energy into building and maintaining his relationship with the customer. In everything we developed, he challenged the team. He would say, does this make sense for customer X, right? But more than that, together with the development team, he established these regular and shorter key user testing sessions during the sprint directly with their customers. And this was a really great thing because in, let's say, 15 or 30 minutes, these sessions, regular sessions, gave us direct feedback so that our team could reassess and pivot, in their development if needed. And the development team loved these sessions too because they got in-time feedback and often positive feedback, which really motivated them. Secondly, this product owner was really good at getting people on board with his vision. And he had an idea on the way forward, but he was very open for input from the team. And this only made his vision stronger. On the first day we started working together, he talked to the Scrum team about his short-term and long-term vision, but then he listened. He listened to the team and incorporated their feedback. And this really paid off because he then had, took his vision to the management, and the background was we needed some additional budget for, an application that would cost money to develop new features that we wanted. But he had not only the strategic arguments, but he also had the technical backing, the technical arguments from the development team to be able to convince the management. And this was so strong. And I recognize this as being a really great product owner, a really great one.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that aspect of the product owner job being kind of a give and take. It's like you need to give the vision to the team, but the team has knowledge and experience that the product owner cannot possibly have because they're developing the product, right? So they can see through the vision and understand how the details of the product mirror or not to that vision and give feedback to the product owner. And of course, they're also creative people. They can come up with even better ideas, angles that the product owner didn't even consider. Potentially even customers the product owner didn't even consider. And that's really I think the power of that collaboration between team and product owner is that you can bring the product and market perspective with the product owner, and then you can bring the technology and innovation perspective from the team, and you can put those together and create ideas that build on each other. I think that's really a powerful and potentially highly impactful way to develop a product further.
That's it. And I think the product owner, a great one, is good at activating those synergies and really, putting the pieces together and drawing on the strengths and the knowledge of all members of the team.
Absolutely. Catherine, it's been great to have you here on the show. Unfortunately, we're getting close to the end. But before we go, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
So you can find me on my LinkedIn profile. I'm more than happy to connect with people, to include them in my network, to exchange ideas. So this is where you can find me. Absolutely.
And we'll put the link on the show notes so that people out there can go and ask a few follow-up questions. Why not? And link with Catherine on LinkedIn. So Catherine, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.